Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently we are in Proverbs chapter 17, so let's get right into it. Now we kind of started 17 in the last study, so we're going to pick it up at verse 16 where we left off. One of the good things about the book of Proverbs that each proverb stands alone, so kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you put the verses or chapter headings in it. So anyway, verse 16, why does the fool have money in his hand with no intentions of buying wisdom? A friend loved at all times, and a brother is born of difficult times. Without sense, one without sense in their agreement and puts up security for his friends. Now we stopped here because remember in chapter 6 he dealt with uh, co-signing for people. Um, the I was always taught co-signing was against God's command. God never commanded not to it. He just basically said, you're kind of dumb if you do. Okay. All right. Verse 19. One who loves to offend loves strife. Now, believe it or not, there are people who love that. By the way, that's one of the 7 things that God hates, sowing discord among people. The one who loves to offend loves strife. One who builds a high threshold invites injury. Now, a threshold would be the little strip at the bottom of your door. The point is creating a trip hazard and then taking pleasure in it. Verse 21, with a twisted mind will not succeed, and one with a deceitful speech will fall into ruin. Verse 21, a man fathers a fool to his own sorrow, and the father of a fool has no joy. Now, one of the most, you see this right now with one of the mass shooters. Of course, this is not the only example. What you think about, this just came to mind, the mass shooter, the one that did the bank, but his parents came on and were profusely sorry for their son's actions. And that I think every parent, I'm a parent, every parent would actually feel that way. That, Lord, please don't let one of my children be a serial killer or a mass shooter or something like that. A man fathers a fool. Now, I'm going to say this. A man fathers, the term fathers a fool to his own sorrow. That term fathers here. When I say intentional, it is something that it's a verb. It is something you do. Not just give birth. In other words, there is the giving. Your children can have 2 kinds of relationships with you. One, they are your children because through your marriage you gave birth. They gave birth. When he talks about father here, this is talking about the raising up. Even the term begot, you use the term begot under the old King James, he that begot the fool. The idea here is not giving birth to, but producing, raising up, training, teaching. And so, by virtue of it, this is the opposite here. If you father a fool, in other words, if you do not raise them right, if you don't train them right. So the idea is that if you father, if you father a fool. Now, this is what I'm saying when we talked about the instance of the rod. The idea of chastising, disciplining your children with spanking. And what I said was that spanking wasn't the only means of discipline. And oftentimes you have parents that may focus only on beating them, spanking them. But you also have to, when you talk about fathering children and the difference between Christian raising as opposed to the world has a different outcome. The world had a different purpose. That's why you cannot, to me, you don't want to compare what's going on like with schools and things like that. Part of the cultural and political debate over what's going on in public schools. There are a lot of people that will tell you if you want to be Christian, then you should homeschool your kids. And that's not a bad idea. I'm not knocking that. What I will say is the people who tell you to do that usually are in financial positions to do that. If you had a ministry and you're a popular minister where you're bringing in streams of income, the little woman can stay at home. So whenever you talk about fathering, or I'm sorry, not fathering, but whenever you talk about homeschooling, you have to always say, well, who's going to do the homeschooling? So now that goes back to the kind of assumption that everyone is making enough income, for example, for there to be a one parent working and then one parent stays at home. When you had a situation in the cultures where there was an agrarian society, non-industrial, where our societies are today, okay, yeah, you can do that. Maybe you could take off a break from plowing and come home and instruct your kids. I'm not an agrarian, so forgive me if I butchered that. So my point is that a lot of the cultural wars, and you got sometimes Christian leaders saying, well, you should homeschool your kids. They're meaning technically teaching them reading and writing at home to shield them from the world. Now, again, that is a good thing if you can do it. But the problem is, what if you can't do it? We're not designed to be in the earth, isolated from the earth. I mean, from the world. We're not designed for that. We're designed to be in the world. So here, what is the better thing notion does? So even if you decide, and even if you can homeschool your kids, so I'm not in any kind of way disparaging that. What I'm saying is that when people make those kinds of statements, they're in a financial position to do so. A lot of people are not. But whether you homeschool your kids or not, because homeschooling your kids doesn't make your kids Christians, doesn't make your kids more godly. It doesn't avoid this statement here in verse 21 when it says, a man who fathers a fool, a man fathers a fool to his own sorrow. It doesn't mean that you're not producing fools, because you have to also teach them God in the godly way. Excuse me, you have to teach them in the godly way. And that's the difference here. So whether they get into a fight, the transgenders fight, or the gay fight, the LGBTQ, whatever fight, teach your kids. Teach your kids. Father, parent your children in a godly way to produce wise kids so that they can handle society. They can be discerning. So when he said the man fathers a fool, that means you father the person who either doesn't believe in God, you father the person who doesn't believe God, or you father the person who doesn't obey God. Remember, that's how the use of the word fool here is used. So a man fathers a fool, and then of course you do that to your sorrow. Now, I use the term of a person going out committing mass shooting, but it also could be, how about this? I would be very sorrowful for my children coming out ungodly, not walking in the way of the Lord. That's sorrow, because then that opens up the avenue to all kinds of sin, and sin that doesn't lead them to God. That is the ultimate sorrow. Now, their actions, of course, reflect that. That's all. Their various actions reflect their ungodliness, which could also affect their eternity. So a man fathers a fool to his own sorrow, and a father of a fool has no joy. That is certainly true. Your kids can give you no joy if they're fools. All right, let's go on. Verse 22. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. Now, I'll come back to this because there's going to be another proverb on that. But again, when a person's heart, their spirit is joy. It kind of gives life to everything. But a broken spirit, how can you calm that? A person just, it's hard. You have to kind of see a person like that to experience a person with broken spirit. Like there's no recovery from that. They could be broken in spirit, living in a opulent life. Verse 23. A wicked man secretly takes a bribe to subvert the course of judgment. Boy, do we have that. Okay, secretly too. Obviously, most of it is secretly. Most people won't do it out openly, but notice that a wicked man secretly takes a bribe to subvert the course of justice. But it does come out in the news every now and then. In fact, there is a hint of one of the Supreme Court justices, in some of their dealings with a billionaire. Just saying. Verse 24. Wisdom is the focus of the perceptive, but a fool's eye roams to the end of the earth. A foolish son is grief to his father, and bitterness to her, to the one who bore him. We just kind of talked about that. A person who is, again, a foolish son. And remember what that term foolish means, though. That person is a person that doesn't believe in God, obey God. An ungodly person. And all of these kind of proverbs here is unfolding different applications of what a fool is. And certainly there's a grief to their father. Verse 26. It is certainly not good to find an innocent man or to beat a noble for his honesty. Now we see this, right? Or innocent people fall under the injustice, right? He says certainly it's not good to find an innocent man. And then he says, oh, to beat the noble in honesty. Verse 27. The intelligent person restrains his words, and the one who keeps a cool head is a man of understanding. You could watch people who sometimes you may think, and if you're ever in a situation where that, for example, this kind of happened to me. I manage, some people, and one particular person got in my face and was so belligerent. I just didn't say anything. Now, inside, I felt like I was allowing myself to be punked. This person was belligerent, disrespectful. I'm his manager, and they were just disrespectful to it. And I just didn't say anything. I am, you can say, getting the way you dealt with it is that okay. Now let's go through it through the discipline measure. Now, if I lost my cool, I would not have been able to discipline this person the way that they need to be disciplined. I suppose I got down with that person. Now, when I say this person they got in my face, they were pointing their fingers, cursing me out, calling me out of my name. But suppose I did that back. Notice what he says by an intelligent person restrains his words, and the one who keeps a cool head is a man of understanding. In other words, I would have blown the chance. I've seen managers that do that. Verse 28, even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent, discerning when he seals his lips. Notice he said, even a fool. We get into more trouble by the way we talk, especially when it comes to the law. You People do not realize how foolish they are by talking to the police. And in most cases, they can talk themselves into trouble when they should just remain silent. That is in America, that's a given right to remain silent. Most people don't talk themselves into trouble. I'll tell you this, in marriage, one thing I learned, and I'm going to say I'll kind of speak to my wife, that we both learn sometimes when to keep silent, not to say stuff. And sometimes we may think to each other, in each other's head, a perspective. I would love to say something. I would love to respond. I would love, but even a fool is considered wise when he keeps silent. Even a fool when he keeps silent. Okay. That is so much wisdom you can learn right there. That because sometimes think about it, if you say what you want to say, if you speak what you want to speak, whether it's wise or not, you say, I want this person to know how I feel. A lot of people are like that. Then you can go and say, really, what did it accomplish? What did it really accomplish? That's you're giving them a taste of your mind. Now, some people say, well, I don't care. I spoke it. Well, later on, you do care. Because even a fool, when he's considered wise, when he keeps silent. That is so much true. Okay, I'm going to stop here and pick it up in chapter 18 in the next study, the book of Proverbs. Okay, guys. Now, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome, and I will see you in the next study.